Hey, everybody, and thanks for tuning into this episode of the Physician's Mind podcast. I'm your host, Curtis Wilkerson, and today I was honored to speak with Maryam Adel. Maryam is a second-year medical student at the Michigan State University College of Osteopathic Medicine, and she holds a Bachelor of Science in Neuroscience from the Wayne State University in Michigan. If you enjoy this episode, please share with your friends on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. Hope you enjoy this episode, and thanks a lot for tuning in. So Maryam, thanks a lot for joining me today. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
Of course. So can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
So I'm a second year medical student at Michigan State University College of Osteopathic Medicine. I am from Farmington Hills, Michigan, and I went to Wayne State University for my undergrad, where I got a Bachelor's of Science in Neuroscience. And I graduated in 2021. I took 2 gap years afterwards and worked as a medical assistant and research assistant. And I started last year, so 2023 at MSU Com. Um, and yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. So we're starting our second year now, correct?
Second year.
So at what point did you become interested in a medical career?
So there wasn't really one point where I began to get where I started to get interested in the field. It was just like a bunch of little moments. So my grandmother was she was an OBGYN from my home country, which is Iraq. And when I was little, like I knew about her work, and that was kind of like my little first spark. And then like in middle school and high school, I was really just interested in biology and learning about the human body. During undergrad, I kind of was officially, unofficially pre-med, but I wanted to also explore different careers before I decided fully. It wasn't until I got some patient experience and like really had to sit with myself and work through like what I enjoyed doing and what I wanted to do with my future, really after college, when I decided like, okay, for sure, this is what I want to do with my life.
Awesome. And so that being said, I know at Michigan State's osteopathic school, they have the OSMP program where students can kind of directly funnel in from undergrad. I am assuming you did not do that program. You did the traditional application.
Yeah, so I did the traditional application. I think it was only for Michigan State students. I think I went to Wayne State for undergrad, so I couldn't really participate in that program. And in some ways, Wayne State did have that program, a similar type of program, but for Wayne State. But I kind of wanted to keep my options open even as an undergrad because I didn't want to like fully decide on medicine until I knew in my heart that this is what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So,
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so kind of maybe some seeds were planted. Your grandmother was an OB-GYN physician in your home
mhm.
country, and as you sort of gathered clinical experience throughout college, did that sort of really reinforce your desire? Was it the clinical experience, or was there some other things that you think were valuable?
So the clinical experience definitely played a factor into it. And another thing was like it was just so I shadowed a ENT who was also actually a DO when I was in undergrad. And I just remember like being in the OR and like talking with the resident. And it was just like it just felt, right. I don't know how to explain it. It just felt like this is like it was like the resident was explaining how they like step by step how they would like close up a wound, or like it was like the patient had a tumor in their ear on their like outer ear, the um yeah, their outer ear. And they were thinking of ways to like remove it and like kind of like reconstruct the ear. And I just thought that was like so cool. And like the experiences I had with patients, like whenever I would um like it just felt very rewarding being in that position like with patients, and like it was like an honor just like being there with patients in their most vulnerable states, because in a lot of ways it's like I think it's hard for patients to be I know it's hard for that for patients to be in that position. I've been a patient before where it's like you don't know what you um like you don't know what to expect. You don't know, you don't want to be there, but it's like it's kind of like they're inviting you. It's like it's like an honor and privilege to be invited in that space and be given the opportunity to be there in their hardest of times. So, yeah.
Very interesting, and it sheds some light on the importance of gathering clinical experience. So, for any pre-meds that may be listening right now, it's very important to kind of gather these experiences and kind of get in touch with the feelings that you have while you're in that environment, because whether you're in an interview or you're just kind of contemplating your why, it's important to understand how those clinical experiences reinforce your desire to enter a career in medicine. I know I was asked that in several interviews during this cycle, and I'm sure you were as well. So thank you so
Yeah.
much for sharing that. Now, my next question is going to kind of involve some of the challenges you've overcome and the unique difficulties in medical school and perhaps an undergraduate as well. So, if there were any notable challenges along your journey of matriculating into medical school or throughout your first year of medical school that you think may be common for those in the medical world, could you please share some of those experiences and maybe how you overcame them?
Yeah. I think a part of it is sometimes like they talk about imposter syndrome a lot in like the medical field, even as a pre-med and like as a med student. It was just something that I struggled with a lot. And even some of these days, it's like it's very hard to know if you're doing any of this right or if you really are supposed to be there. And sometimes it's just about like, especially I struggled a lot during my first year in medical school because, you're when they say like it's like drinking water out of a fire hose, like they were not kidding. And it's like no matter how many times, I don't mean to scare you, but like no matter how many times like you hear it, it doesn't like you don't really know until you're in it. And there were moments where it just felt like, why am I like, how, am I even meant to do this? Was did they make the right decision accepting me? But it's like you have to realize that you're a lot stronger than you know. You can handle a lot more than you think you can. And that's just been very interesting to learn about myself and my peers, because it's like it does take a lot of strength sometimes to persist and to like study even when you're like, I am so nervous. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do well on this test, but you just have to trust and know that you know more than you do and are like, there's a reason why you're here and there's a reason why you're doing this, kind of
Wow.
remember your why. So,
Thank you for sharing that. I'm sure that's definitely a troubling experience for yourself and many other medical students who are kind of just getting involved in the curriculum. And like you said, it is just like a fire hose, just inundation with information. And you can
yeah.
kind of probably, I could see how you could start thinking like, oh my God, I can't handle this. Like, this is too much for me. Am I really supposed to be
Mhm.
here? And it's sort of like, if you don't reach that point in your journey, it's like, are you challenging yourself enough? Or like,
Mhm.
are you doing what you know you could really do? So kudos to you and anyone else who's gone through an experience like that, where they've been
Yeah.
kind of questioning why they're putting themselves through this and persisted despite the fact that they haven't quite maybe felt that sense of progress or what have you. And that's another common thing, actually, students being kind of put through that meat grinder of the preclinical years and thinking, wow,
Yeah.
like I am not feeling any progress. I'm not feeling much of a reward. It's just kind of over and over again, rinse,
Hmm.
repeat. But there eventually comes that point where you're like, oh, I see. Like I can understand why. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, do you have any idea what you're interested in specializing in, or are you kind of open for your experiences in the next couple years?
I try to keep a very open mind with my experiences. So I've kind of like my top three that I've kind of kept are like internal medicine, gen surge, and neurology. And I've been trying to get shadowing experiences in all of them. I've shadowed a few neurologists, and I recently went on a trip to like a global, what is it, like a study abroad with MSU Com in South Korea. It was like a clinical immersion program, but like you get to observe a bunch of surgeries, and that was cool. So there's just I've been trying to keep an open mind because I feel like clerkship will help me decide. So
Yeah, most definitely. But that sounds awesome. South Korean study abroad trip in medical school. Tell me a little bit more
yeah.
about that.
So it was like during the summer, it was 2 weeks. We got to do it at Seoul National University Hospital. So it was like in Seoul, which is like I think it's like the major city in South Korea. We got to I got to observe a lot of surgeries in like the general surgery department, a lot of also like subspecialties. So we got to look at colorectal, biliary, pancreatic, all those like departments. And it was just really cool. It was very interesting to see because I had shadowed an ENT/plastic surgeon here in the US. And also I had shadowed the general surgeons in Korea. And it's very interesting to see that um like the dynamics between the staff. It's very similar in a lot of ways, really. South Korea was really cool. We also got to go to like Busan and Gyeongju and all those places in the country. So it was just a very interesting and a very good learning experience overall.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. And you kind of answered my next question too. I was going to ask you if it was vastly different in any way or if it was generally similar, but you said it was kind of mostly similar in terms of just
Yeah.
general procedures and whatnot. Were they
Yeah.
speaking English there or was there a translator?
So they spoke the doctors and surgeons there could speak English. But like amongst themselves, they were like everything was in Korean. I think a lot of yeah, like when they would so like we also had lectures and those lectures were in English. And they were given by like the surgeons and the like major surgeons in the department. And it was like very interesting and very cool trying to like think of what I had learned at MSU Com and then like relating it back to all the procedures that we were seeing. So
Wow,
yeah.
what an incredible experience that must have been.
Yeah, it was like so cool.
Oh yeah.
So
That in fact you've kind of got me interested in something like that. So gonna be putting that one on the back burner for the future.
yeah.
Now, you mentioned we were kind of talking a little bit before we started recording that you were in one of your pod groups with a previous interviewee and a friend of mine now, Luke Noah. So,
Yeah.
friendship and camaraderie and just having that team with you is so important. And I wanted to ask you, how important has it been to have a group of individuals to kind of, how can I put it? A group of individuals to just be there for you and support you throughout the challenges. How important has that been along your journey so far?
I think it's for me like it's just been great having a group of people with me that understand what I'm going through and are going basically through the things that I've been going through. Um, and like just having my friends to study with or to like go out with or have fun with during our off time, obviously. It's just been really great. It's filled my, what was it? The terminology is like fills my cup or like, like makes me like, it's just been very, it's just been a lot of fun. It's been yeah. I honestly sometimes like medical school gets very hard sometimes, and it's so important to have people around you that are just there for you and you're there for them in the same way. And it's um and sometimes like you learn a lot about like you learn new study habits, you learn a lot about yourself, you learn about other people and just like about being human sometimes. So
Yeah.
it's just it's just been great. And yeah, Luke is a great friend. We're also in like the same Potter group in school. So that was it's been cool.
Luke, shout out to you, my friend.
Yes.
Okay, so let's go back to sort of the beginning of when you started medical school to now. When you first were kind of getting showered with that crazy amount of info, how did you
Yeah.
sort of adapt your study schedule? And what have you learned throughout the first year now in terms of effectively studying for such a great amount of material? What kind of advice would you have in that regard?
I think so my study method has had to change a lot throughout my medical school career because sometimes different classes and different professors and different subjects just demand different like ways of studying. So, for example, like for anatomy, I like it's just rote memorization. And honestly, anatomy is one of those subjects that I excelled in because I'm a very visual person. So, using Anki flashcards and like making Anki flashcards that are like type in for practicals was really helpful so that I know like the exact name of the structures. And sometimes it's just like for me, attending lectures in person is very important so that I'm on track for lectures. Um, and sometimes if I really don't understand something, I will use like third-party resources to better like get a picture of what is being taught. And I think just like maintaining a schedule is very important, like managing your time, giving studying the time that it deserves. I won't say that I've always been like the truth is I have not always been a perfect student, and sometimes you have to realize that like you won't always get all the things that you want done on your to-do list every day. And it's all about like kind of always checking in with yourself and self-reflecting on what you need to work on. Um, and just like being okay with adapting your study skills because the thing that worked for one class won't work for like the next class.
Most definitely. Yeah. And I appreciate your transparency there because being honest about our abilities and kind of where we're at a certain in a certain circumstance is crucial if we're going to make any true progress. And I'm sure that 99% of the listeners here are not the perfect student. So, but it's
Yeah.
it's hard to admit that sometimes, right? Like our egos
Mhm.
get in the way and we don't want people to kind of know what our shortcomings are, our weaknesses are, but there is strength in kind of identifying where our weak points are and working to improve on those things. So, but it starts with being honest about them. So,
Yeah.
very, very good point that you brought up there. And really, as it relates to just studying for that period of time, I mean, what kind of things are you doing to balance that out? What are you doing to keep sane outside of medical school? Because it's interesting. I actually just ran into a couple first year students outside of my apartment here, and they were just
Yeah.
so stressed. They're like, "We're going on a walk. We've been studying for 10 hours a day," and
Yeah.
talk to them for a few minutes. And a second year student kind of rolls in. He's like, "Oh, hey guys," super relaxed. He's chill. He's like, "Yeah, I was just playing some pickleball. How are you guys doing?" They're like, "What?" He's like, yeah, it
Yeah.
gets better. So, but
Yeah.
I mean, what are you kind of doing outside of medicine to stay balanced and keep your mind sane?
So I like to I've enjoyed running. I'm not like a pro runner. I don't do marathons or anything, but I do like to run or take a walk. I really like, and like after exams, I like to hang out with my friends. Um, I I keep in touch with my family a lot. They've just been supporting me so much throughout this journey, so shout out to them. And I like to watch, I don't know, Netflix. I like to read and just like sometimes I just lounge. I don't know how else to I just like to just relax, take a nap, you know? Nothing I don't have any like crazy hobbies or anything like that. Just like work out, hang out with friends, watch TV, read. So yeah.
The perfect human balance right there. And sometimes just lounge. I do the same thing where it's like, you know what?
Yeah.
Let's just relax. Let's just
Yeah.
relax. So beautiful. So, Miriam, as we kind of wrap up here, is there any sort of advice or insight that you think would be worth sharing to somebody who maybe is an undergrad or about to start medical school or interested in going to medical school? Something that you think would be worth sharing for them?
Um, I think that in a lot of ways, you have to remember that for pre-meds and undergrads, it's like I think you have to just keep doing the things or like pursuing the things that you're passionate about. Because when it comes to like if you're when you're applying to medical school, you want to be able to talk about it like in a way that's like genuinely talk about it, you know? You know, I think that was a big part of why I think like it just made the interview process and the admission process for me a lot easier. And like it's just better for your soul to do the things that you're passionate about. Don't let this process um take take you away from who you are. I don't know if I said that right, but like um don't get too wrapped up into it and stray away from the reason why you're doing this. From the reason why, you know, ultimately why we're all here or why you're here. And for medical students or like incoming medical students, really, my advice is you're a lot stronger than you think. There's a reason why you're here and you can do this. And at the end, we're all kind of doing this for because we love people, we love medicine, and sometimes it gets this process is so long and difficult that it kind of gets in the way of like you can lose sight of that, but it's very important to kind of come back to the reason why we're all doing this. So yeah, I don't know if that was very concise, but I hope it got the message through.
Yeah, no, that's actually really good advice. Just being authentic to who you are as for the undergraduates at least, well, and of course beyond,
Mhm.
but in your
Yeah.
context, being authentic as you kind of pursue your extracurriculars and the things that are going to strengthen your application. Because nobody wants to talk to a robot who just checked a bunch of boxes. They want to talk to someone who volunteered at the local veterans hospital because they're interested in military service, or volunteered at the homeless shelter because they're actually interested in that, or kids, or whatever it may be. Just being your authentic self and staying true to who you are is just so important, because it's like you just want to be a normal human and you want to kind of just connect with people. And you can't really do that if you're living this superficial persona, right? And then starting medical school, I really loved how you said you are capable of much more than you think you are, because it's true. I believe that like wholeheartedly. We have a world of untapped potential within us. And to go along with what you said about being authentic, if you really pursue your authentic why, that
Mm-hmm.
can sustain you throughout the rigors and the long journey of your medical school. So
Yeah.
fantastic advice, Miriam. Fantastic advice.
Yeah. Thank you.
Of course. Well, everybody, today we've been chatting with Miriam. We've kind of discussed how her clinical experiences early on reinforced her desire for a medical career, kind of overcoming imposter syndrome and persisting through the challenges she faced initially in medical school, successfully overcoming them. An interesting study abroad trip to South Korea, how shared hardship can foster great friendships throughout medical school, and giving studying the time it deserves, maintaining a rigid schedule, but maintaining balance and just being your true self. So, Miriam, thanks so much for sharing. Hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.